I hearty welcome with the Sirasastanga Namaskara to our TME Society Harapnalli's President Sri 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 Shabra Varasajjojata Mahaswamiji Harapnalli, and at the same time I hearty welcome with the Sirasastanga Namaskara to our beloved Secretary Sri T.M. Chandrasekarayaji, and I also welcome today's academician, resource person, and a best supporter of our college, Dr. U.K. Kulkarni, Associate Professor, School of Education, Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijayapur. At the same time, I too welcome all the participants who are attending the webinar today. But I never forget to welcome the host, those who are worked behind the webinar. And at the same time, I too welcome our colleagues and the students of our college. Thank you one and all. Have a nice participant of this today's webinar. Thank you.
Good morning to one and all. Firstly, I congratulate Principal Dr. K.C. Kulkarni and all staff and management committee of TMAE Society's College of Education for organizing such a wonderful webinar, especially in the present COVID situation. The organizing committee has created a platform to share my views with the teacher fraternity. Today's my talk is focusing especially on instructional planning for curriculum transaction in higher education. It consists of concept of instruction, anatomy and structure of instruction, stages of instruction, levels of instruction, instructional planning for curriculum transaction, steps of instructional planning. Let us start with a quote given by William Arthur Ward. There are categories of teachers. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. Everybody wants to become a great teacher. For that, try to inspire the students to involve in the teaching learning situation. Let us begin with understanding the concept of teaching or instruction. Several attempts have been made to define the terms of teaching. Teaching as an intended activity. It's a purposeful activity. It's an observable phenomenon. It's a concrete activity. And it also called as a narrative activity and like. But more definitions are still emerging. Flanders says the act of teaching leads to reciprocal contact between the teacher and the pupils, and interchange itself is teaching. When you look at the one more definition given by Gage, he defines teaching is interpersonal influence aimed at changing the ways in which other person can or will behave. So these two definitions focusing on what teaching and what not teaching. Teaching is defined in a dictionary of education. Let us consider the concept of teaching from the narrower point of view. The act of instructing in an educational institution is called teaching from the narrower point of view. If you go for broader meaning of teaching, it includes management of teaching learning situations. When you look at the broader meaning of education, it consists of teaching learning situation, so-called management of teaching learning situations. That includes direct interaction between the teacher and the learner, proactive decision-making process of planning, designing, and preparing materials for teaching learning conditions. ಗುರುರಾಜ್ ಹೋತಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಹೋತ. However, it's very difficult to precisely define the concept of teaching and its nature. But teaching is associated with the process of learning. Marshall, at the outset, he defined teaching is organization of learning. To sum up the concept of teaching, teaching is concerned with activities such as training, and teaching is concerned with instruction. When you consider teaching as training, it's especially focusing on three important aspects. One is knowledge, second one is skills, and third one is development of some sort of attitude towards the particular work. Teaching can be considered as an activity which is related with instructions, to give some instruction to the learner to modify his or her behavior. Teaching is concerned with another one activity which is called guidance. As we are aware of it, through teaching, a teacher has to give guidance. It may be an individual or it may be a group. If problems pertaining to the individual, there is a need of individual guidance. If problems are related with group or the mass, there is need of the group guidance. Teaching is another one activity. It is considered or concerned with directions. That try to give directions for what purpose to reach the particular goals. It is concerned with activity such as reconstruction of knowledge and experiences. As we are aware of it, teaching is nothing but a reconstruction of knowledge. Not only reconstruction of knowledge, reconstruction of activities. Hence, we can call education is an activity which goes on in the society. Society in terms determines the nature and scope of the education. Teaching means modification of behavior. Through teaching, we have to modify the individual behavior in a permanent manner. Teaching means giving reinforcement. As we are aware of it, reinforcement plays a very important role in the process of personality development of the learners. The reinforcement may be a positive reinforcement or it may be a negative reinforcement. The positive reinforcement means giving praise, negative reinforcement means giving blames during the course of teaching. The another one activity of teaching is concerned, that is finding solution of their problems. Let us go for the second one aspect entitled with anatomy or structure of teaching or structure of instruction. The anatomy or structure of teaching comprises three important variables which operates in the process of teaching learning conditions or teaching learning situations. The first one is teacher as the independent variable. Why teacher is called independent variable? When you put a question, teacher does the planning, organization, leading and controlling of teaching. Hence, we can call teacher as an independent variable in the instruction. He can prepare the plan, he can organize the class, he can lead the class, he can control the class according to his interests. He or she is free to perform various activities to provide learning experiences to the learner. The second one is student as the dependent variable. Now put a question, why student can call as a dependent variable? Student is required to act according to the planning and organization of the teacher, and student is totally dependent on the teacher's performance. The teaching activities of the teacher influence the learning of the students. Always teacher influences the learning of the students. Come to the third one, important structure, that is content and strategy of presentation as the intervening variable. Both the independent variable and dependent variable, in between there is the intervening variables. They are influenced both on teacher as well as student. That is called independent and dependent variable. The intervening variables lead to an interaction between teacher and the learners. It increases the interaction. Through interaction, both are involved in the teaching learning process. The content determines the mood of presentation. According to the nature of the content, we can decide the mood of presentation. Maybe telling, maybe showing, or maybe doing. Look at the picture. It shows that the structure of the teaching. At the left side, teaching, there are three important variables in the structure or anatomy of teaching. One is teacher as independent variable, content and status of presentation as an intervening variable, student as a dependent variable. When you come to the right side, there are three important aspects. They are called the functions of the teacher, content and strategy, and student. So called independent variable, intervening variable, and a dependent variable. That is diagnosis, prescription, and evaluation. What do you mean by diagnostic function? The teacher as an independent variable is more active and diagnose the following. In the course of teaching, teacher has to diagnose the following aspects. First one is entering behavior of the students. We have to diagnose problems pertaining to the entering behavior of the students. Not only entering behavior of the students, teacher has to diagnose the teaching problems with reference to teacher point of view. What sort of problems teachers are going to face at the time of presenting the content. Individual variations. Teacher has to consider, or teacher has to diagnose the individual variations. There is individual differences we have to take into consideration at the time of presenting our content. We have to diagnose content analysis in view of the learning conditions. According to the learning situations, learning conditions, we have to analyze the content and we have to diagnose the problems which arises in the content. In the process of interaction, both teacher and the student diagnose for initiations and responses. Go for second one, functions of teaching, that is prescriptive functions. The major objective of this function is to bring desirable changes in the behavior of learners. The prime aim of prescriptive function is to change the desirable behavior or anticipated behavior from the learner. The teacher makes efforts to organize the intervening variables in such a way so as to select teaching techniques and feedbacks that helps in the realization of the objectives. A teacher has to go for selecting n number of teaching techniques, and side by side he will get live feedback. It helps to realize the objectives which is prescribed one. Come to the third one function, that is evaluative functions. This aim is at examining the effectiveness of the prescriptive functions. We have to evaluate the prescriptive functions. That is, evaluative function has the two main activities. One is construction of criterion test to evaluate the learner's personality. Construction of criterion test to evaluate the content. Construction of criterion test to evaluate the performance of the teacher. Evaluation of change of behavior in the learner. We have to evaluate through our teaching, we have to evaluate the change of behavior which occurs through our teaching. Now I will try to drag your attention towards third one aspect, that is stages of instruction and its operation in the classroom situation. Teaching is a complex task or complex phenomenon. On the basis of the various activities involved in the teaching learning process, Jackson classified the act of teaching into three stages. A great educationist Jackson, he classified the teaching into three stages. They are pre-active stage, interactive stage, and post-active stage. These three are the stages of instruction according to Jackson. Let us consider what do you mean by pre-active stage. Before actual classroom teaching, or what Jackson calls it as a calm part of the teaching. A teacher has to perform many tasks before entering into the class, before active stage. That task includes preparing lesson plan according to his own time, according to his own abilities, arranging furniture and equipments which is within the classroom situations. We have to arrange the equipments according to our convenience and thinking about aberrant behavior of the particular students. This has to be planned before entering into the classroom. Hence, Jackson called it as a calm part of the teaching. These activities are very crucial to the teacher's performance during the regular teaching sessions. Reactive behaviors are more or less deliberative. The teacher at this stage hypothesizes about possible outcomes of his or her actions. His planning for future teaching. At the time of planning, the teacher hypothesizes about possible outcomes of his actions. There are certain operations in the pre-active stage. They are called substages. Formulating of or fixing up the goals. A teacher has to fix up the goals of his teaching or her teaching. Taking decision about the text. A teacher has to take decision about what text has to be delivered. That means the content organization and analysis of the content. Without organizing the content in a scientific manner, it is not possible to transfer that content into the students. Managing or sequencing appropriate means and ways of presentations. We have to manage or we have to sequence the suitable means and suitable ways of presentation. Deciding about appropriate strategies and tactics of teaching. As we are aware of it, teaching is a complex phenomenon which includes several strategies. We have to make use of suitable strategies to convey the maximum information in the minimum effort. Let us go for second one stage, that is interactive stage. This is called actual classroom teaching. In this stage, the teacher uses a number of strategies to achieve the goal already set. In this stage, teacher uses various skills from beginning to start the lesson into the end the lessons. He has to depend upon various skills of teaching, maybe a skill of introduction, skill of statement of the aim, skill of presentation or skill of explaining, skill of using blackboard, skill of questioning, skill of probing questions, illustrating with examples, skill of stimulus variations. Like that, teacher has to depend or teacher has to make use the various strategies to achieve the goal. In this stage, the behavior of the teacher is more or less spontaneous because he has to give n number of illustrations to convey the information. Sometimes teacher can give correlation, analogies to convey the messages. The various research suggests that things happen quickly during the teaching sessions. There is a greater sense of physical and psychological intimacy between teacher and the students. Definitely, there is a intimate relationship or intimacy between teacher and the student with reference to physical intimacy and psychological intimacy, which is playing a very important role on the part of the students with reference to learning. The task of keeping students involved, explanation, maybe demonstration, definitions, and other logical operations that have come to be thought of as the heart of the teaching. A teacher can make use a suitable mode of presentation, either through explanation or demonstration or experimentation, etc. The operations are: the interactive stage of teaching involve following three important operations. First one is perceiving the size of the class to identify the students. In the process of teaching, teacher has to perceive the size of the class. By that, a student can identify the students properly. Diagnosing the achievement of the learners. Try to diagnose the achievements of the learners. Who is following and who is not. What troubles they are facing. We have to diagnose it. Action or achievement, that is initiation or response, which involves identification of stimuli, which can motivate the learners, feedback or reinforcement for motivating students to involve in the teaching learning process, and development of various strategies of teaching. Now come to the third one aspect, that is post-active stage. The post-active stage arises when the teacher has left the class and think in the retrospect about what happened in the class. So this stage is after the teaching. Hence it is called post-active stage. Therefore, it is not right to view the teacher's behavior during class, but the complex business of teaching. It means the success and failure of the teaching. Teacher has to focus the success of his teaching and failures of his teaching. Try to review the strength and weaknesses of his or her teaching. The operations are: Defining the exact dimensions of teaching behavior. Dimensions of teaching behavior. Which dimension is suitable? Which behavior is suitable from the student point of view? Reselecting appropriate teaching devices. As we are aware of it, teacher has to rethink which suitable as which device is suitable for teaching the students, changing or improving strategies of teaching. Now I will try to go for next one important aspect to understand the teaching and its planning, that is levels of instruction. Teaching and learning are so closely related and they are considered as a one aspect. If you focusing on teaching, it focus on learning. If you focusing on learning, it focus on teaching. Hence, they are just like two faces of the same coin. However, it is convenient to divide the total aspect of teaching learning into three broad classifications. First one is memory level of teaching. This is a first order level of teaching, memory level of teaching, related to thoughtless teaching. This level insists on the development of the cognitive domain. It focusing on cognitive domain only. Most of the psychologists do not prefer this level of teaching learning at the higher level because it is only focusing on cognitive domain, it only focusing on memory level. It is not suitable at the higher level of teaching, especially higher educations. The second one level of teaching is understanding level. It is related to thoughtful teaching. A Morrison, great educationist, in his book Theory of Understanding, he defines that going towards generalization is called understanding. We have to teach the content. Our learner should go going towards generalization and forming rules and principles. Our teaching should be proceed to formulate some sort of rules and some set of principles and developing insight about the content, about the situation is called understanding. Let us come to the third one, the important level of instruction, that is reflective level of instruction. It related to most thoughtful teaching. For reflective level of teaching, if we are planning our instruction at the reflective level of teaching, for that, memory and understanding levels are considered as prerequisite for this level of teaching. Without memory level and without understanding level, it is not possible to teach our content at the reflective level of teaching. It develops creativity among the learners. The reflective level of teaching boosts the creativity in the learners. And it develops critical thinking among the learners, which is very essential at the higher level of teaching. In other words, the higher level of teaching should focus on developing critical thinking among the students. It can make the students a complete man. That is the ultimate motto of the education, so that he or she can solve his or her own problem. If a person, a learner, want to become a complete man, he or she has to understand their situations, their surroundings, and they can solve their own problems with their own efforts. So these are the three important level of instruction. If you want to prepare the plan of teaching, we have to consider the level of teaching, at which level I'm going to instruct the students. Let us come to the another part. that is instructional planning. Now, question arises, as a teacher, do we need instructional planning? Yes, a teacher needs instructional planning. A planning today or planning tonight is not a panicking of tomorrow. Not only for us, for student also, they are not panicking. So there is a need of ours to prepare the plan properly. Every teacher, before entering into the classroom, they have to prepare plan of instruction. It is benefited by both teacher as well as the student. What is the purpose of lesson plan? What is the purpose of instructional plan? It helps keep good classroom management, which is the need of hour. Because nowadays, classrooms are overcrowded. The students are individually different. If it is the case, we have to manage the classroom. For that, the lesson plan or instructional planning is helpful. When a lesson works well, students not only learn, they behave properly. Classroom management plus well-designed lesson equal to higher achieving students. If our instructional planning is meant for achieving higher level of achievements among the students, that is possible only with the help of proper planning. Now look into the purpose of lesson plan from the learner's point of view. They realize that the teacher cares for learner. The students realize that the teacher cares for their learning. They attend a structured lesson because teachers prepare lesson very systematically. Hence, they are going to undergo the structured lesson. When they are going to attend the structured lesson, it's very easier to assimilate the students. If they are going to attend the structured lessons, a well-planned lessons, students can appreciate their teacher's work as a model of well-organized work to imitate. Now, question arises in our mind, what is a lesson plan? Or what is an instructional plan? This instructional plan or lesson plan focusing four important aspects. Look at the figure. First one is, who am I teaching? Try to decide our own role. Try to understand our own role. Who am I teaching? What is my role before the learners? What learners are going to understand? For that, teacher has to decide, who am I teaching? So lesson plan helps us to decide the role of the teacher. Then second one is, what am I teaching? The what am I teaching? It focusing on the content. So without the content, it's not possible to change the behavior of the students. For that, we have to focus on which content I'm going to deliver. What am I teaching? What am I teaching? Third one question is, how will I teach? How will I teach it? It focusing on methodology. It focusing on procedures. The content is there. If I want to transform that content into the minds of the students, there is a need of some strategies. There is a need of some methodologies. So how will I teach? It focuses on a suitable method according to the students' abilities. The fourth one question, how will I know if the students understand? So in the process of teaching, or at the end of the teaching, a teacher has to assess the students, the level of understanding. The type of assessment, we can call it as a evaluation. So these are the four important aspects which are involved in the lesson plan or instructional plan. Now, instructional planning for curriculum transaction. If I am going to plan to curriculum transaction, instructional planning for curriculum transaction, what does it mean? The instructional planning is effective and desired implementation of curriculum contents on the basis of aims and objectives listed. If I am going to prepare a plan, that is instructional plan for curriculum transaction, a teacher has to think about the curriculum or the content, which is structured on the basis of aims and objectives listed, providing various learning experiences for its learners. A teacher in his teaching is going to give various experiences. For that, we have to prepare a plan at the time of transacting the curriculum. Organization of planning. We have to systematically organize the plan. Then only we can deliver the content in a very effective manner. Once we organize the plan in a very systematic manner, in a very scientific manner, then the implementation of organized plan is very important aspect. A teacher has to implement the plan which is planned before. So that is called implementation of organized planning. After implementation, so-called execution of planning, then evaluation of implementation by the implementers. After the implementation of plan, which is prepared by the teacher, so try to evaluate at what extent that plan is succeeded, whether we have reached the goal or not. For that, we have to keep some of the important steps in our mind. That is called the steps of instructional planning. There is following are the some important steps to be followed in instructional planning and its transaction in the classroom. The first one is content analysis. What does it mean? At the time of instructional planning, teacher has to analyze the content, so-called content analysis. It is nothing but a breaking up of the content into a small bits. We can't present the entire content at a time. To cover the important facts, important principles, important concepts, we have to break up the content in a small bits. That is called content analysis. This content analysis emphasizing a particular part of curriculum which is important and which is not important for the level of students. Of course, there is a content which is prescribed in the textbook. Some of the content is very important from the student's point of view, and some of the content is not so important because some of the students already know it. Some of the students, they are not aware of it. So we have to understand which content is important and which is not so important from the level of student. That has to be decided, that has to be emphasized by the teacher. That is called content analysis. The second one step of instructional planning is selection of suitable presentation mode. A teacher has to select a suitable presentation mode. It differs from teacher to teacher. Why we have to select suitable presentation mode? Under that, we have to select instructional objectives. Once we consider the content, according to the content, we have to formulate the instructional objectives. Based on the instructional objectives, we have to select a subject matter. That is called subject matter. Third one is student background. We have to consider the student's background at the time of presentation. Not only students' background, the teaching styles or teaching methodologies. It is vary from teacher to the teacher. The teaching style or method of teaching is changing according to the students' background, according to the mental ability of the students, according to the classroom conditions. The teaching style may be focusing, or methods may be focusing. It may be a lecture method. If the content is suitable to present, a teacher can stick on to the lecture method. Sometimes teacher can demonstrate if the content is suitable for demonstration. Sometimes teacher can assign some projects, or sometimes teacher can go for discovery method. There are a number of methodology a teacher can decide. That is called selection of suitable presentation mode. A teacher is free to select a suitable methodology. Come to the third one important steps of instructional planning, that is selection of media. Selection of media. As we know, friends, medias are playing a very important role. The use of technology, it may be a audio technology, it may be a video technology, or it may be a combining audio and video technology. Nowadays, the electronic gadgets, which is familiar by the student, is audio visual aids. They are familiar with smartphone. If it is so, how best we can teach the content through smartphone? How best we can teach the content through the laptop? How best we can teach the content through the computers and some other electronic devices? That is called selection of media. After selecting a suitable media, the fourth one important step of instructional planning is coordination of media. With choice of interaction, such as maybe drama, debate, pick and speech, pick and act, maybe creative writing, maybe brainstorming, maybe group discussion, maybe bus discussion, maybe experimentation, etc. These are some of the media we can coordinate. Once we use the technology, accordingly, we have to coordinate of the media. Which media is suitable? Can I go for presentation through drama? Can I present the content through debate? Can I present the content through pick and speech? Can I present the content through pick and act? Can I present the content through creative writings from the students? Can I have a brainstorming in the classroom? Can I have a small group discussion in the classroom? Can I present the content through experimentation? These are the various media teacher has to coordinate during the instructional planning. Detailing the task. It is nothing but a break up the task. We have to think what are the tasks to be completed in the teaching learning processes. What teacher want to do? This is the one task we have to detail it. What teacher wants to do? What questions teacher ask for the students to check the progress of the students? What questions teacher ask for the students? What question teacher expect from the students? Question not only from the teachers, many times a student asks questions to clear their doubts. So teacher has to keep in his mind what questions teacher expect from the students. Which media teacher has to use. You have to decide which media teacher has to use. So these are some of the detailing the task or breakup of the task. The last one is evaluating of learning outcomes. So we have to evaluate the learning outcomes. As we are aware of it, learning outcomes are assessed under the three domains. One is cognitive domain, second one is affective domain, and third one is psychomotor domain. We have to assess the learning outcomes. How it is possible? We can assess the learning outcomes through normal reference testing or criterion reference testing. If we want to assess the individual progress from the individual point of view, at what extent individual attain the task, for that we can go for criterion reference testing. Sometimes we have to assess the individual performance in relation to the group. That is called norm reference testing. For assessing learning outcomes, a teacher can go for different types of the testing. It may be a teacher-made testing, or it may be a standardized testing. A teacher can prepare himself to test the students. The type of test, we can call it as a teacher-made test. Sometimes to assess the content, to assess the growth of the learners, to assess the outcomes of the learning, a teacher can go for the standardized test, which is already available, which is prepared by the experts. Now, the good instructional plans focusing on 4 important things: interest and abilities of the students. If we are preparing our plan of our instruction, the plans must consider the interest and abilities of the students. It must cater the interest and abilities of the students. The teacher's own interest and strengths. It must consider the instructional plan, must consider interest and strength of the teachers, and the teacher's beliefs about teaching and learning. Lesson instructional plan must and should consider beliefs about teaching and learning. The teacher's belief about teaching and teacher's belief about learning. Your own openness to change your plan. A lesson plan or so-called instructional plan is not a rigid one. It is your own openness to change according to circumstances. Teacher may not stick on strictly to the lesson plan. He can change, he can manipulate according to the situations or according to the classroom conditions. Keep some important key elements at the time of preparing instructional plans. It must be transitions, easy to follow, use proper time. It must be precise. While preparing instructional plan, it must be precise in nature, and it must be variety in nature. We have to go for variety of lesson plans. Don't have a one type of lesson plan. Try to prepare the variety of lesson plan according to the variety of the content, according to the different classroom conditions. So these are some of the tips for you, do's and don'ts. Be specific. If you are going to prepare your own instructional plan, be specific. Try to explain the content. Specific. Try to prepare the plan specific. What content you are going to deliver before the student. Anticipate the problem. Try to allow the students to pose their problems, to ask their questions. Decide timing. Try to keep in your mind time factor at the time of presenting the lesson. What is the duration of my presentation? Keep in our mind the duration of the presentation, or time of presentation. We have to prepare well. At the time of instructional planning, if we are not going to consider the time factor, a teacher may be present the content in an haphazard manner. It may create more from the student point of view. The next one is how materials are ready. In an instructional planning, a teacher needs to set various materials, so-called teaching devices, so-called teaching aids. The teaching aids are supplement to a teacher to teach the content in a very effective manner. In another part, a teaching aid is very essential from the learner's point of view to understand the content, a complex content in a very easier manner. A picture is equivalent to 1,000 words. So it can save the time and it can save the effort of the teachers. For that, a teacher has to get ready the various materials for instruction, so-called various teaching devices, teaching materials, supplementary teaching materials, get it ready. File your plan for the future. Try to prepare the plan in a write-up manner. It can be used as a means for further planning. Hence, file your plan for the future. So these are some of the essential aspects we have to keep in our mind at the time of preparing instructional planning. What to avoid? Avoid many details. Sometimes teachers are going to explain in detail, many details. It may create confusion among the students. Hence, try to avoid many details. Try to be specific. Try to be specific. Then only a student can follow perfectly. A student can get success. A student can realize the goal perfectly. Don't use complex terms or words. In the process of presentation, in the process of preparing instructional planning, don't use complex terms, complex words, or complex phrases, which is unknown by the students. Sometimes the students are not known of your words. If it is the case, students may not understand the content very effectively. Sometimes it may create confusions among the students. Hence, try to avoid use of complex terms. Try to avoid use of complex words. Try to avoid use of complex phrases. Friends, I want to conclude my today's presentation by quoting one quotation quoted by Rabindranath Tagore. He beautifully says that what is the role of teacher? A lamp can never light another lamp unless it continue to burn in its own flame. As we are aware of it, a lamp can never light another lamp unless it continued to burn its own flame. Similarly, if a teacher want to transform the knowledge to the another one, first of all, teacher must and should enlighten it. Without the knowledge, without the understanding, without the light of knowledge, a teacher cannot transform that knowledge of light to the another one. So for that, teacher has to prepare very nicely. Teacher has to well prepared. That helps us to today's presentation. Here, I want to thank one and all who are participating in the wonderful webinar. Firstly, I thank Sri T.M. Chandrasekharaya, the Secretary of TMA Society for giving an opportunities. I especially thank Dr. K.C. Kulkarni, a principal, TMAE Society's College of Education, Gangavati. I thank D.M. Arun Kumar, the coordinator, IQVC, TMAE Society's College of Education, Gangavati. I thank Panchaksharaya, HM, Assistant Professor, TMAE College of Education, Gangavati. I thank all the staff of the TMAE College of Education. I thank all the managing committees of TMAE societies for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my views with you. Thank
I heartily thanks Dr. UK Kulkarni, Associate Professor, Department of Education, KSA Women's University, on behalf of our management and staff for giving an excellent coverage to instructional planning for curriculum transactions in higher education. And also thanks Sri Shabra Varasadjodota Mahaswamiji and our beloved Secretary Sri Chandrasekharaya TME Society Arapanalli for their enormous cooperations in the organizations of this event. And also extend my thanks to our principals and staffs for organizing this function. And thank all the participants of the National Webinar. Thank you, one and all.